Chapter 10, the third part out of the textbook, focuses on morale and motivation. Before we get into the details of the slides provided by the author, I thought it worthwhile to provide a perspective that I think is required for you to understand things like motivation. And I use Maslow's hierarchy of needs as probably the best recognized theory model for motivation. And the reason I do this is because for a long time I couldn't recognize why I wanted to do 2 master's degrees at age 50. I always tell the story of a buddy of mine having dinner with me and asking me why I was doing it. He'd known me since I was in my early 20s, as he was at the time. And so I quipped with him that I wanted to get a promotion, and we continued to eat dinner, and about 15 minutes later, he finally came up and said, "Well, but you own your own company." So, and of course, I was just teasing him to see if he could figure out what the issue was. When I saw Maslow, it finally dawned on me this is why I was doing it. But starting at the bottom, if any of you have ever ran out of any of these things, I use the example of breathing. When I was a scuba instructor at 18 years old, down at 90 feet training Royal Canadian Mounted Police, that my mouthpiece went awry and I couldn't breathe. And boy, it's amazing of never thinking about breathing to suddenly that is the most important thing in your life, literally. And so whether it's breathing, water, sex, sleep, goodness knows sleep you can recognize for all of you folk who are going through your graduate degree program. It's amazing how important that becomes when you don't have it. And then you graduate and you get employment, gainful employment. You're not worried about being laid off. It's nice, safe. Maybe you've bought some real estate and you have a house yourself. You're focused on the health of your family, and you develop one. And it becomes more and more. Certainly, some of you have come out of some very strong families and have good friendships. But as time moves on, something's lacking. And now that you have those three, you focus on, I want to be recognized by others. I want to be respected for something that I've done, and that might motivate you to do things. Maybe it's a title. I want to be recognized in the hierarchy of companies. And I've certainly been guilty of that as I've gone through title after title to reaching the highest levels of companies. And title was a key part of me. I would take less money for a title. I would not argue it. And now, title has nothing to do with my decision process. In fact, I probably want a lower title. So I could do more of what I wanted for fun. And then finally, you're at the self-actualization where you want to focus on your own needs. You don't care about anybody else. And maybe you're out solving your own problems. Maybe you're being creative, but this is it. And so I certainly believe I've been at the top of this Maslow curve for some probably a little more than 10 years. The weakness of this model is that it doesn't skip a step. It assumes it's all in order, and I think some of you with strong family relationships might have that one flipped with safety, depending on how you look at things. I also think that this one doesn't handle the drops in Silicon Valley where one day you're unemployed and suddenly you're going to lose your house and bam, you're back down to safety. So it's not perfect, but it's certainly something for you as food for thought. And this certainly ties into the first bullet point of the next slide, which is motivation is the drive to satisfy one's psychological needs. Now, of course, we're focused more on workplace, and we don't have time to go through a bunch of different models. But why do you go to work? Other than get money, maybe to relieve some social pressure. I don't know that's that important anymore. When you go to work, what makes you feel good about your job? Um, what, on the other hand, demotivates you? What are the things that just kill you for when you go in? Your boss telling you what to do every day, leaning over your shoulder. And morale is kind of the internal manifestation of motivation. Morale is both a individual phenomenon where you can have low morale and everybody else around you is fine, or you could be the one bad apple in the barrel and spoil it for everybody else. So here's the book's definition of psychological needs, that in order to satisfy them, you need to believe your work's important and have a sense of achievement. You can see how this ties into Maslow. Some people, as they've moved up, they really want to achieve. They want to recognize. They want to be recognized for their contributions. They want to use a bunch of skills they have. They want to perform well-defined tasks. They want some autonomy. They want to have professional growth opportunities. They want to be in an environment that looks good. I've worked in a company, that was kind of it was an okay office layout, and we moved to fancy offices. Boy, it felt great. Now I'm at university here, which is certainly doesn't have the money, and nor would we want to spend it if we had it on fancy furnishings. Some other things that make software engineers just a quiet place to work. Just the autonomy to solve my own problems, the company's problems. I want to be able to come and go when I want. I want to know my work is important, and I want to be recognized for my contribution. The challenge, the ability to try out new things. So some other things that make engineer: adequate computing facilities, technically competent leaders, chance to speak with peers in some sort of channel, and maybe informal social gatherings where it's once a month party, or it's free junk food and drinks in the cafeteria. Now let's look at the can versus the won't. If someone's not performing, it's one of two reasons. They can't, or they won't. Well, actually, maybe it's both. So let's look at the example of they can't. They're willing, but they just haven't got it. Maybe they haven't been trained in it. Maybe they don't understand the methodology, the tools. They just haven't got the experience or basic ability. I believe that there are a couple of groups that are suffering from this. Now, what about the reasons for won't? They're not seeing the payoff. They're not somewhere in the Maslow's curve, or maybe they're worried about other things. Maybe there's a perverse payoff. So for those who are able but unwilling, are not motivated to perform at their level of ability. So let's look at the four examples. They can and will, best. They can't and they won't. Well, you've got to work on that one. Here's a scary one where they can't do the job, but they'll go ahead and try and really mess things up, or they can do it but they won't, where you got to be working on motivation. So that kind of lays out the different options. For software engineers, we've got to ensure they're all able to perform their jobs. They've had the training, they're willing, they've got a safe and secure environment. If they come up with an idea, they're not going to be jumped on. And so the way you pass on feedback constructively is very important. So let's conclude with the four different options here. Unable and unwilling. Maybe you need to be teaching plus you're selling. Maybe on the next one, they're willing to do it, so you've got to teach them how to do it, and you got to reinforce. The next one is, again, back to the motivation, and maybe it's a carrot or the stick. You're giving them, here, if you do this, I'll pat you on the back, but if you don't, you're going to be fired. So, that's unfortunately not something that you want to pull up regularly, but it's always a challenge when they're unwilling. And able and willing, you're reinforcing and you're delegating more and more to them so that you can move on to other things. Back to an earlier comment I made that if one of your staff can do 80% of what you can do, give them the task. It frees up your plate and it gives them an opportunity for growth. So that's the end of C.